All right, hey CAD 101. We are going to start on a new project today. So we're going to transition off of the example 12 that hopefully all of you guys are feeling good about. And we're going to transition over to kind of a totally different thing here for a little bit. It should be pretty fun. We're actually going to trace some images, and I'll talk to you about why we end up learning this. There's a couple of good reasons. One of them, actually the first one, is, and actually I'm just going to insert an image here so that that you guys can see how that goes, and then we'll talk about it. So I'm just going to go to the Insert tab and say Attach. And I'm going to scroll in my images, and I'm going to look for, let's see, it's this one right here. Okay. So in certain situations, and I'm going to go over all this again more slowly, but I'm just going to insert this for now. So in some situations, draftspeople will end up working with drawings that are really old. So one time when I was building some sheet metal parts, I was working off of a drawing that was actually made in 1947, which is pretty cool. And it was scanned in, and so I got it as a PDF. And so sometimes what's easier to do is to take that scanned image, insert it in the background, and then you can use your tools to trace over certain things. And actually one of my current students right now works, he's interning at Burns and McDonnell, which is a local mechanical engineering firm. And this is what he does quite a bit. So he'll insert a previous drawing that's been scanned in as an image, and then he'll actually add lines and notes in AutoCAD. So we're not going to do this exact task. We're actually going to do something that's a little more fun. Typically when we're tracing images, we are trying to bring something to the laser cutter. So what we can do in AutoCAD is, if we had, let's say we had an image of the United States, we can use our tools, drawing tools, to trace an image. So we would trace all the boundaries, we could trace the rivers, all that kind of stuff on a map like this. This is just an image that I found on the internet. And then when we get to the laser, we have to tell the laser which lines are going to cut and which lines are going to be engraved. So obviously the rivers are engraved, they're not actually cut, and then just the boundaries of the states are going to be cut through all the way. So so each one of these has to be a separate line. So yeah, we're gonna do a little tracing today, and I'm gonna walk you through the process of how to do that. So so what your assignment's going to be is to find an image, and I often recommend a logo of some sort. Logos are pretty straightforward. There's a lot of contrast, between the colors, so it's easy to trace. When you get something really complicated like a picture or an image with a lot of grayscales that kind of bleed together a little bit with some shading, that gets a lot trickier. So what I chose was the Denver Broncos logo, and I'm going to walk through just the insertion part of it right now. So we're going to go to the Insert tab, and then you're going to click Attach. Click that, and that brings us to a place where we can search the computer. So wherever you save that from the an internet image or something like that, just save it as like a JPEG. That's a good file type to import. And I'm just going to click on the Bronco. We'll say Open, and it brings us to submenu like this that's going to give us some options. I typically don't change a lot of stuff. I leave specify on screen in terms of insertion points. You could do, you could do 0, 0, 0, and then it would bring it into your, right to your origin. Rotation I'm going to leave, and the scale I'm just going to leave at 1, and we're going to talk about scale right now. So I click OK, and then I'm going to put it here, and then here's it allows you to scale it, but we're going to leave it at 1. So I'm just going to hit enter on the keyboard, and it's going to drop our logo right there. Okay, so we are actually going to scale this a little bit. So what I'm going to have you guys do is I'm going to basically pretend you guys are going to cut this out in the laser. And so I typically require that it's 4 inches, so it can fit whatever you make. Your drawing here, your tracing, is going to be able to fit into a 4-inch square. So the biggest dimension on your image should not exceed 4 inches. So I'm just going to scale my my photo to make it 4 inches, because currently it's a bit smaller than 4. So to scale it, I'm going to click here, and you're going to get it's going to select your image, and it's actually going to kind of assume you're wanting to adjust the image. But if we go to the Home tab up here, and we click Scale, where you type in SC on your keyboard, it'll bring you to the Scale menu, and it's going to say Specify Base Point. And at this point, we're going to type R. So without moving your cursor, just R, enter. And now it's going to ask for reference length. So it's asking for the length, the original length that you're trying to scale. So we're going to scale from here to here. That's going to become 4. So we're going to click the endpoint, and then it says specify new length. And I'm going to say 4, enter. And now that has gone to a size of 4. Let's just double check that that is the case. So we go from here to here, and it's 4 inches. So I'm just going to do Control Z, and I'm just going to do that one more time. So I'm going to click the image, go to the Home tab, Scale. I'm going to click the base point, and without moving my cursor, I'm going to type R, enter, and then I'm going to go and click on the original length, and then I specify the new length, 4, enter, and that gets us to the image size is 4. So that's pretty helpful. The scaling portion of it is really helpful to do with any image that you bring in. Typically, you're going to have to make that the size that you want it to be. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to begin tracing all of our features. And so what I'm going to do first, actually, is I'm going to put this on a different layer. So we'll click our image, go to the Home tab, and I'm going to place this on I'm just going to put it on the construction layer for now. Okay, so if I want to turn this off at some point, I can turn that off with my layers. And that will be handy a lot of times later when you want to see what lines you have and maybe what features you haven't traced yet. You'll want to be able to toggle on and off your image. So it's going to be really helpful to put it on another layer. The other thing I did was I changed my 0 layer to a different color, because in my situation, the background is white. And so it's going to be really difficult to see what lines I'm drawing if my layer is white as well. So yeah, white on white is not going to show up. It's going to be difficult to see. So I changed it to pink for a little more contrast. I also changed, if you notice, my cursor, actually my cursor is always red, but your cursor is probably white as well. If you have an image with a background that's white, you're going to bring your cursor on there and it's going to immediately disappear. But if you right click just out in space somewhere and you go to options, you can go to the display tab and then to colors. And you can go to crosshairs right there. And you can switch the color of your crosshairs there. So, all right. So maybe that'll be helpful for you guys, hopefully. All right. I'm going to actually switch back to red because I think red shows up better. So I'm going to just redo that real quick. So options, colors, crosshairs, and red. All right. Okay, so how are we going to trace this? We're actually going to use the spline tool to do some tracing. So we're going to, and the spline tool is found in the drawing tab right here. So if we click there, here is our spline tool. So this is the spline fit. And so I'm just gonna show you how this works. I'm gonna click the spline tool and I can click, actually I'm gonna turn off my snaps for now because I don't want it snapping to the edge of the image. And what I'm doing is just kind of zooming in on the edge. And I'm just basically tracing. And enter. And I've got one spline in here. So when we click that, you're going to see all of the fit points that I clicked. So these are the spots that I clicked along the way. And what you can do with those fit points is you can now kind of drag these back and forth. And you can actually move the fit points as well. So let's say you wanted this one up here, because that's going to work better for you. You can drag this thing around until it fits just exactly the way you want it to fit. And typically what I tell folks is when you get to a really sharp corner, so this is a, it's a curve, but it's still a corner. The spline, you want to end your spline in something sharp and then start a new spline in the corner. And I'll show you why. So let's say we have a sharp corner. And we run our spline through that corner. Pressed escape on accident. Actually, this one's following pretty well. There will be situations where this curve kind of bulges out and doesn't really want to follow the contour. So sometimes when I have a really sharp edge or a sharp corner that I want to get into really tight, I'll just end that line. But I guess in this situation you can just you could do that. But I'll show you on the other one what that's going to look like. So if you needed a really sharp edge, I'll turn my snaps back on. Okay, so if you needed to get a really tight corner, just go ahead and end your spline and then start a new one. And then that'll save you some time. All right, so what our goal is to basically outline all of the features in our image. If you come to a spot that a normal line is going to work better, you can absolutely use a normal line tool as well. Let's see, let me grab the line tool. So you don't always have to use the spline tool. You can be using these wherever it makes sense to use that. You can use circles, like if you wanted a perfectly round eyeball right there, you could do that as well. So you're just going to use any of the available tools you want to trace an image, basically. And then if we were to cut this out in the laser, we would be going over to the laser and we would be picking individual lines and making it so that the laser understands that that's to be engraved and not cut out, or vice versa. So we could cut the eyeball, we could, engrave any of the features that we end up drawing on here, or we can cut them. So that's why we want to convert. And this is basically, this is considered a raster image. So rasters you can zoom in on, there's a ton of pixels. That would be a raster image. You can actually engrave that on the laser as well. It'll engrave raster, but in order to cut on the laser, we have to make it a vector, and a vector is are the lines that we create. So we can make these cut lines over on the laser. So pretty similar operation you might be doing, you might see in an industry setting, but it's also a thing that we do in order to create projects on our laser cutter. So I'm gonna upload the criteria list for this project, but go ahead and find a logo or something fairly simple to go ahead and trace, and let me know if you have questions. Should be pretty fun. All right, have a good day.